Today, we're going to explore how you can design innovative blended learning that your learners will love. And what's really cool about today's session is that we are using a real training program that is currently in development. In fact, we're taking a peek behind the curtain into how cLearn is approaching the design and creation process of their brand new blended course, and also the thinking behind the why and the how. Then we're going to go and build it live in front of your very eyes. You see, creating and delivering e-learning has become super easy, especially with Arlo, and you'll see that today, but we also want to inspire you to think a bit more strategically about how you can deliver innovative blended learning at your organization. And to do this, we are joined by the one and only Jeff Makey. Jeff brings over 15 years experience designing and delivering industry-leading training programs. He's passionate about continuous education, and it's been a real privilege to be invited to see how their expert team approaches learning design and also get to understand the bigger picture of how Blended offers real growth opportunities that sets them apart from their competition. We also have Ben Mather, who'll be jumping into Arlo to turn Jeff's vision into a reality. Ben has worked closely with many of our customers over the years, so comes with a wealth of knowledge into the various needs and use cases of training providers. So I'm super stoked to have him join us today. So awesome to have you guys with the session. It's going to be a goodie. But before I hand it over to Jeff and Ben, a quick word from our sponsors. Arlo is the training management software that you and your learners will love. It's purpose-built for anyone running instructor-led training, giving you the tools you need to create, schedule, sell, and deliver live, self-paced, and blended training, all in one powerful and easy-to-use platform. In an age of AI slop and generic self-paced courses with appalling completion rates, we here at Arlo champion the role of instructor-led training to drive real learning outcomes. We see technology as an enabler of this, helping businesses simplify operations, deliver better learning experiences, and sell more courses. With a mission to enable exceptional learning, modern, multi-session, across different formats, all managed seamlessly for you and your participants from registration through to certification. And Jeff, do you like the fact that I used participants in there?
I
I'll
do
get
like
there.
that, Andre. Thanks.
So let's hand it over to you, Jeff, and let's start with the background around cLearn and kind of what got you into Blended. But first, yeah, tell us a little bit more about the cLearn story.
So, at the risk of showing my age, if I don't already, in the early 90s, when I was going to college, there weren't really any degrees on adult education and training. They really didn't exist in our region at all. And I discovered that I had a real passion and talent for this, and I really love it. So I ended up finding a school that had many different colleges within the university that I could combine, and I actually created my own degree in creating adult education and certifications. It was a lot of fun. Over the years, I've done a variety of different duties within this. Once upon a time, I even owned a company that trained whitewater guides professionally, and we actually created swiftwater rescue certification programs that were accepted by the federal government, including the National Park System as well as the U.S. Forest Service. So that was a lot of fun. Lots of life changes since then, became a parent, couldn't travel any longer, went back into my roots of construction, and eventually that's when we decided to open up cLearn. We focus on construction-based training and consultation programs.
Oh, I love the story. And Jeff, you've missed out one accolade on here. I think you recently received an award.
I did, Andre. Thanks so much for bringing that up. I'm super proud. I do feel like this is a career milestone, but I was just awarded the Regional Construction Educator of the Year. Super proud of that with our work, working directly with our local and regional contractors. So thanks for mentioning that. Very proud of that one.
Oh, well deserved. And your training programs, from what we've seen, are just so good. You know, the use of video and how engaging they are. So awesome to have you with us. So let's jump into, I guess, the story behind why you've kind of made a move into creating some new blended courses. And often, like like often is the case, it's kind of driven by some of the challenges and opportunities you're seeing as a business. So yeah, walk us through what's kind of led you into this in this direction.
So back in 2020, they announced they were going to start to mandate continuing education for general contractors within the state of North Carolina. So I saw this as a great opportunity for me to go back into my passion, what my talent is. And, you know, CE is continuing education is continuing education, but we wanted to do something different. We wanted to make this stand out. So we actually see our continuing education programs as a marketing branch. We've done things that nobody has ever done before with continuing education. We do a talk show style, pre-recorded interviews, in-field footages, just changing it completely. As I said, that was always intended to be marketing. We really wanted to dive into consulting and helping our clients create their own in-house training programs. And it was working. It was happening. But what we found, it was cost prohibitive for our clients. So for us to come in, bust open your SOPs, and really design a custom training program for those clients, we're running into $10, $15, sometimes $20,000 per project. Well, all of a sudden our clients are like, Jeff, we don't want to spend $60,000 or $80,000 with you, and that's reasonable. So as we've grown, we've learned more about the systems and what our clients can actually afford and what they actually need. So we decided to launch into an instructional design certification, which we are currently working on right now. The reason we did that was a shift. If we can bring our clients up to a base level of function in creating the training design programs, then the consulting becomes much more affordable for them. So the instructional design certification, we call it IDC, launching that is very affordable, it's very cost effective. They get a base level of knowledge, and now we can retain them as our clients under a much more cost effective model.
And that's really interesting, and I love the idea of kind of public continuous education courses being demand gen for driving more kind of higher value consultancy work, and then obviously kind of seeing a big jump between these classes or these courses and then actually doing full-on consultancy. So really trying to fill that gap. Why did blended appeal to you to kind of be the, I guess, the delivery model that would help you do this more effectively?
You know, that's another really good question, Andre, and I feel like that many of the folks joining us today are asking that same question, like, how do I incorporate blended learning? And we examined the complete autonomous self-study programs, but something that both of our companies share culturally is that instructor-led component. But sometimes, man, there's just too much information to get across to people, and that instructor-led time is really where we build relationships and we get that peer-to-peer activity. So blended learning seemed like a great opportunity to reconnect with the learner, the participant, outside of the classroom, reinforcing certain core values, sometimes the more difficult values, so we can reinforce those, and then we can also slowly and calculated bring in new information that we'll be talking about in future modules. So that was really at the core of this. And Andre, you guys have watched us through this progress over the last several months, and it really has been an ongoing conversation on how do we do this and what's the best way to arrange it.
You know, working with our customers, we just want people to look at new ways to kind of add, you know, to add more engagement to their course. And one simple way is to add pre-reading or some kind of material and schedule that into the course. But on the other extreme is folks like yourself who are designing a whole new course. You know, you love the instructional design piece and really kind of going back to the drawing board and really thinking strategically around how these two elements work together, which I think is quite inspiring and really interesting. So let's jump into kind of, I guess, your approach, you know, how you approach this type of learning design and you know, with the learner in the center. So yeah, tell us a little bit about that.
You folks paying attention out there probably heard Andre make a joke a few minutes ago that he used the word participant instead of learner. That's a core value here with cLearn. We believe that because adult education is very different than any other type of education. Andre, have you ever been in a room full of people, something that you're leading a discussion, and somebody out there knows more about the specific topic than you do? Has that ever happened?
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we see everybody joining the classroom with us as participants. Sometimes they know more about a certain piece of it than the instructor does. We want to maximize the engagement from participant to participant and the participants to the facilitator. You can really only succeed in that in the instructor-led classroom environment, whether it's in person or whether it's a webinar. That's really the only way we can get that participation in there. That's where we build the culture. That's where we build the systems. That's where we learn how to communicate, better teamwork, and there's better learning because we're all learning from each other. But then we run into the problem, we can't get through all the information in the scheduled time because people are talking, they're engaged, they're actively doing it. So we need an opportunity to add more later. So recall, remembering, that is learning. We can use the blended learning, the e-learning side of things, to reinforce the most difficult topics that we discussed in the instructor-led side. So we got that recall, we have them remembering it. We can calculate how and when and why they're going to remember that, changing the order that they're remembering it. Then we can also introduce more difficult topics that we'll be discussing in later instructor-led modules, and that reduces the cognitive overload. I've been to these classes, I've taught these classes before, and I've had people leave them. We send out the surveys, and frequently they're like, that was really great, it was just too much. I couldn't digest it all. So we have major cognitive overload. So we're really addressing that, maximizing the participation, enforcing what we need people to remember the most, and introducing the most difficult topics ahead of time so that when we get to them in class, they already have that foundation.
Yeah, I love that. And it does start with learning outcomes, doesn't it? You know, thinking about what you want the learner to come out of this program with and starting there, which I think is the best starting point. So now let's kind of pull back the curtain and actually go through your specific design process. So starting with your key principles, I guess, of how you approach blended.
And Andre, you just nailed it a few minutes ago. The outcome is most important. What do we need them to walk away with? And they're not going to walk away with everything that we do, right? But what's most important for them to leave the class, the training session, or the certification with? What is the most important pieces? So we really need to calculate what class time is going to focus on. And then that really, we're going to combine in that chance for peer-to-peer discussion, that chance for interaction, practice, and coaching. We want everybody to join into the conversation because we will all learn from each other. And when people feel invited to join the training session, they're going to be more open to learning the topic that we're discussing because they're involved in it. So we really wanted to calculate what was going into those instructor-led pieces. And once we moved through that, introducing the e-learning part, and like many of you, I would assume, I've never done major e-learning design. This was really our first branch. We've done a little bit of it here and there. We've done some self-study stuff, but as far as like really calculating how we want this play off, you know, looked at it, we talked about it as a team, said we really need to reinforce key concepts. We want to present these in a different fashion to help strengthen recall. But also, there are things we're going to be talking about in the second, third, fifth modules that are going to be difficult for people to grasp in a 90-minute session. So we want to calculate slowly introducing these new concepts. So e-learning is going to have recall based into it and then new concepts based into it moving forward. That way we're kind of capturing the best of all worlds.
I think that's what I kind of love about the approach is that not only do you add kind of new learning opportunities or new formats, but you actually take things away from the in-class session to not kind of overload your participants so you can really maximize that in-person time. Would love to hear from folks in the chat. You know, how have you all created, designed e-learning at this point? Kind of how far are you on the journey? I've got a little poll coming up, but kind of be interested to know, yeah, what kind of assets you guys have created in terms of self-paced e-learning, you know, the areas that you've dove into. So yeah, let's move on to the next slide. And now walk us through the design process, Jeff. So, you know, starting with the outcomes, yeah, what's your process in terms of designing a course and then actually turning it into a reality?
When we first start designing any course, particularly a certification process, and this is the same process we did with like our Swiftwater Rescue certification. So it's all really kind of the same process for us. What is it? What's most important skills that people can walk away from? And we're going to create those. And we start doing that kind of what are the outcomes desired, and then we throw right into a table of contents. Now for us, typically, everybody may do this a little differently. There's softwares to help you, whatever. We just like a good old-fashioned spreadsheet. So we can write down all of the main topics that we want to, and now sequencing them becomes a little easier. We start out with the table of contents, and then we want to map the journey in detail. So we list what each module will have in it. What are the talking points within each module? And as we're doing that and we're laying out the details in each module, by the way, the picture on the screen, guys, is our actual working spreadsheet. It's our actual working table of contents. As we work through there, we can say, okay, these seem to fit well together, these don't. We need to introduce these concepts here so that they'll make better sense there. So we are really creating the journey here, and the spreadsheet idea gives me one piece of paper to look at and one way to simply restructure things as we move through the creation process. It's so dynamic that it's going to change as we continue to create it. So after we've moved through this entire process and we get that table of contents written, we start to review it. Now we're actually writing each instructor outline. And as we're taking a look at it, and Andre, you guys have seen this, we've recorded some of these meetings, and we're like, oh my God, nobody's gonna get through this, like this is just too much information. Like we're not gonna get through this, and even if we do, nobody's gonna know what we were talking about. So now we start extracting information. How can we put this into the blended learning components to strengthen the recall and introduce those new concepts? So even while we're creating the blended learning size, this table of contents and the instructor outlines are still being modified.
I was as a fly on the wall through some of these steps. I was, really interested in this process, and kind of you'd break it into 5 sections, or it started with 4, and then you said, okay, we're really going to need 5. What things can we include in the class? What are the kind of types of learning, that we do in the classroom that evolved as well through the session? And then how do we incorporate e-learning? And I think the thing that remained really consistent was around maximizing in class and then using e-learning to reinforce key concepts, recall, and then introduce new concepts to kind of give people a heads up so they're prepared for those next sessions. But in terms of what fit in those boxes was a little bit fluid, was a little bit of trial and error. And then you folks are quite early on your kind of e-learning journey, so there's also having to match kind of what information you want to pass to your learners, but also what format, using the e-learning modules, what's the best way to deliver that information? What's a way to keep it light, fun within that kind of 30-minute time box? So it was actually more fluid than I probably gave it credit for, as you kind of designed and mapped out this user journey. So it was super interesting to be a fly on the wall. Takes a bit of trial and error, basically.
It is. Well, anytime you're creating a serious certification process, it is going to be trial and error, right? And I do want to give a quick shout out to Elka, who is a fellow Swiftwater Rescue Specialist, and it also appears stuck with the same challenges that we found ourselves with, not wanting to leave that instructor-led programming and jumping into blended learning. I feel that pain, Elka, and we are overcoming that, and it's not as hard as you think.
And I think the important, like we've had a few panels kind of, and we're always advocating the instructor-led, but in our view, instructor-led includes blended. So, it's kind of like what you set this up with from the beginning, was that instructor-led is still the core of this program, or in class sessions, live training is still the core. But it's actually how do we maximize that time, and how do we explore different ways to leverage e-learning to help drive the course forward. So yeah, we still very much want to lean into your strengths, but hopefully this can actually free you up a little bit as well to kind of maximize that time. So I guess now we can actually have a look at what you've designed, because this is a real course, instructional design certification, and this is kind of, I guess, the end result of all the design and planning, and now loading this all up as different modules and e-learning. So yeah, walk us through, I guess, the learner experience, or the participation experience, and how you can kind of play in person with e-learning with each other.
Yeah, so what you guys are seeing on the screen right now are the actual modules that we've created. It's the title of every module. So in the big yellow box here are the instructor-led modules. And we're planning on those to be roughly 90 minutes. 90 minutes is the key target time to not have overload, but a chance to really sit down and have discussion. So we planned all of those out, what you see right here. But then we wanted people to have a base level of where we were headed before we got started. We don't want day one to be the full introduction. So we're going to have an e-learning section that is going to be the introduction. We're going to talk about what a training program is. We're going to do it simplistically, something really simple, just to make sure that they're on the same page with us, giving them some of the basic terminology. And if you guys notice, between every instructor-led module, we have in the blue e-learning. And each 30-minute e-learning module is intended to have some conversation to reinforce what we've already talked about. Remember, remembering is learning. You're not learning it in the classroom, you're learning it when you leave the classroom and think about it later. That's where recall plays in, that's where they're learning. As we said earlier, some of these concepts are going to be difficult for some people to grasp. Some of these concepts are going to build over the entirety of the certification. When we get to the design process, it's going to go full circle back to some of the basic parts, basic components of an instructor outline, but in more detail. It's going to be more complex when we get to the fifth module. So we are really planning on bringing pieces of the fifth module out into some of the introduction in the first e-learning section. And we may also be introducing other things like science of adult learning, teaching tools, and selecting your facilitator. All of these may slowly come out in each e-learning section to build that base of knowledge, reducing that cognitive overload, most important, allowing time in the classroom for the participants to participate.
Kind of like looking at those in-person sessions, 90 minutes is not a massive piece of time, right? So how do you maximize that? And I've kind of remember looking at your class plans or your session planning, and they had quite a few interesting formats that were very intentional, peer review and whatnot. Can you kind of speak a little bit about the progression in terms of how you maximize that class time?
Yeah, that was really interesting because, as I said earlier, when we first wrote the table of contents, if you will, on the spreadsheet, you're looking at it going, this is just too much information. So how are we going to reduce it? How can we introduce it? And how can we get people to talk about the information while we're bringing it up? So all of that is very calculated. We put a lot of thought into it, hours and hours of discussing it. And as we go through that conversation, you know, we are thinking about what is going to be in the e-learning, but truthfully, and right now, this is real time, folks. We finished most of these modules, and we feel like we've maximized what we can do in each training session. But now we're building the e-learning components right now in real time. And I know that as we do this, Andre, that we're going to go back and say, hey, if we modify this e-learning, we can open up more opportunities for conversations within the instructor-led components. So even now, we're going to be experiencing some of those same things you've already witnessed, Andre. We're going to be continuing to have those same conversations. Well, wait a minute, we really want people to talk about this. Let's introduce this in the second e-learning module so we can set them up to be prepared to talk about it.
Yeah, and that's what I loved about kind of going through the process. There was some real non-negotiables. You know, you've got one section where people have a couple of minutes to kind of present their learning plan, and you're like, no, we have to do that. You know, how we manage it and kind of and how long it is and how we manage the peer review so it doesn't kind of blow out of the timing. That was kind of stuff you're working with, but there was some real non-negotiables in your course plan, and so you had to kind of think about how to leverage some of the other kind of, I guess, channels, the e-learning, to ensure that you have enough time to do some of those things that you can only do in the class that are really important for folks' learning kind of progression.
And I really love this stuff, you guys. This is like a true passion for me. And if you're really good at your job, I really see training design as an art. I genuinely do. Andre knows this about me. It's like this is more than a skill. Being able to facilitate and reach all people or most people, I really feel like is an art form.
And this goes to Elka's point. She said it's not hard to create a flat PowerPoint deck, but that's not really engaging from an e-learning perspective. So really thinking about how it weaves together. Robert said he loves the e-learning introduction, gives us more time for teaching, social learning during ILT. I think having people come prepared, the days of turning up ice cold, spending a 3-5 day kind of course, reading the manual in the classroom, it's not the best use of time. Elka also asked about mini quizzes, Ben, so I think you're on hand to kind of jump into the quiz functionality in Arlo, and what's really important, and we'll kind of talk about this at another date, but it makes it really easy to schedule. So as you set up these multi-sessions, you can manage when those quizzes and e-learning components are available. So all that stuff is easy to manage to deliver and automate all the comms and access and stuff like that.
I think
And
that was
so,
a,
yeah, you go,
Andre,
Jeff.
if I may, I think that was a really important part for me, is we don't want people to see the fifth e-learning module until we're ready for them to see the fifth e-learning module. So having the ability to say, you can access the introduction, but nothing else. Now you can access the introduction and the first e-learning module. Yep, you can go back to those anytime you want, but being able to plan and calculate when access is available for those is a critical piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, and it automatically sends reminders. It says this e-learning module is available. The instructor can also track progression, who's engaged, have they completed all those different modules, all that kind of stuff to drive some action. So now that we've got a pretty in-depth look at your kind of five-piece training certification, let's bring it to life. And we got Ben on hand. So this is going to be a live demo. No pressure, Ben. And he's a bit of a whiz with Arlo as you'd expect, but he's going to work with Jeff using Jeff's content to load up and create one of these 30-minute modules for you folks. So handing it over to you, Ben, I'll push stop share and then we'll jump into it.
Awesome. Sounds good. Thanks, Andre. Just share my screen. Just let me know if you can see the screen and I can get started. See it all good? Excellent. Hey, everyone. So today, what we're going to be doing is taking one of Jeff's modules that he's created that he covered earlier. This is a day one outline. I'll just quickly scroll through so you can see all the content on this PDF. And what we're going to be doing today is turning this into an e-learning module together with you, Jeff. So I'm in my Arlo platform right now. And if I hover over to the e-learning section and head over to e-learning content, what we're going to do is see our new e-learning library. So this is where you can host, manage, and connect your e-learning with courses, and also obviously sell it standalone as well. What I'll do is click Create New Content. And here you can see all the different options we have within Arlo to essentially create your e-learning content. Today, we're going to be using Document to Course. So essentially, this takes a PDF, a workbook, an assignment, any of your kind of course material that you have already on hand. You can bring that into Arlo and transition that into an e-learning module, which is what we're going to be doing today. You can generate a course with a prompt. So think maybe ChatGPT style. You could say something along the lines of create me a course, a first aid course for beginners. And then once that's created with the AI assistance, you can then jump in and add your own expertise and your IP. You can convert presentations. So you could take a PowerPoint or any other sort of presentation, such as what Elka mentioned before, and actually convert that directly in the system into an interactive session for your learners or participants, I should say. You can also start from scratch as well. So if you don't want to use any of the AI assistants, you can just jump in and use all your drag and drop tools that are within the platform, which I'll show you shortly. And lastly, which is our newest feature, you can actually upload SCORM directly. So if you've spent hours or extensive amounts of money building your SCORM content, you can bring that directly into Arlo now, post it, and also deliver it through the system as well to your participants. So what I'll do, Jeff, is bring up the Document to Course feature. And as I mentioned, we are going to be turning this PDF into interactive e-learning module. So what I need to do first is drag and drop our document in. So I've got it all prepared here in another screen. So I'll just drag that in. And what that's going to do is push the content into the Arlo system and get it ready for conversion. You can also connect to Google Drive or OneDrive or any other cloud storage devices. And that's just going to make it a lot more seamless and a lot faster to bring that content in. So what I can do is then click Submit. And that's going to then load the content within. And then we're going to go through a series of prompts just to make sure that we get the best possible output from exactly what we're looking for. So first and foremost, Jeff, in terms of the audience for this module, are they beginners? Are they an intermediate perhaps? Or are they more along the journey and they're more advanced users?
We stopped to think about the folks we're trying to attract to this. This is small to medium-sized construction companies who probably have very little experience creating real training programs. So we're going to consider these folks to be beginners.
Awesome. I'll choose that option. Always good to start with the audience first in mind. If you had to choose one phrase, Jeff, to categorize your audience for this module specifically, what would it be? Would it be inspiring instructional designers, new educators, or perhaps we could add our own one?
You know, I think aspiring instructional designers is exactly who we're targeting. We were looking at companies that, again, need the training programs and see the value there. So,
Excellent. It's amazing that it's read the full document and knows exactly the audience kind of straight away. It's very clever. And I'm going to go ahead and assume today that this document is in English. It's module, I should say. And in terms of the tone, Jeff, are you more informal and conversational on the day with your participants, or do you want it to be more motivational and persuasive, or do you want to be really academic and research-based in terms of the tone that we present the messaging in this module?
you know, I loved Robert's phrase earlier about social learning. That's directly in line with our participant and the fact that we call everybody that goes through any of our classes participants. So informal and conversational, we feel like works best with adult education.
Perfect.
For our circumstances anyway.
And then in terms of the length of this course, we mentioned before, I think Andre touched on it and you did as well, around it being a 30-minute module. What would your kind of expectation be roughly for the number of screens you'd expect one of your participants to go through in this session?
You know, I'm going to speculate that we're looking, and again, folks, we haven't actually created this yet. So, you know, I'm going to guess this is going to be 5 to 10 screens for us. And that gives us that 30-minute time zone.
Perfect, perfect. So interesting feature that we've got here is that you can actually pull all the images that are within the PDF or any other document or any of your training material directly into the system. And not only can you use them now, but you can also use them in future modules as well, which really saves a lot of time. So what I'll do is just click yes, incorporate my images into my course, and it's going to pull everything that's within that document straight in. There's a few images in here, but don't worry, I can just click select all, and that's going to enable me to basically pull everything in. I've actually, ahead of this webinar, gone ahead and uploaded all the relevant images already. So I'm going to skip this step, but just know you can easily drag all your images in super quick and also use them in future use as well. So our course and the AI has all the context it needs now to create, I guess, a base outline for us to then go in and add our expertise, Jeff. So what I'm going to do is click generate course outline, and that's going to let us know all the different screens it's going to create here. You'll see it will give it a title, and then it's going to pick all the relevant pieces for that e-learning specifically and generate it out for us. We can also regenerate it if we'd like, if we're not happy with the outcome. Do these titles look roughly in line, Jeff, with what we're looking for?
I mean, these look like they are identical to the structure of our instructor outline.
Awesome, awesome. And yeah, as I mentioned, we can click regenerate, but that looks all good. We've also got a quiz here before, and Alka, you kind of touched on that before in the chat, and we'll definitely be going through that today as well. What I'll do is I'll click create course, and you'll see before our very eyes, the e-learning will start to generate. And on the left-hand side here, this is our screen. So we chose somewhere in the realm of 5 to 10 screens, and it's going to basically generate different screen types for all the different content to try and keep it up, engaging as possible, keep it fresh, make sure that users aren't looking at the exact same thing every time in terms of perhaps just a body of text. So what we'll do, Jeff, is go through all of these one by one, if that's right with you, and just have a look and see where we can improve or where we can adjust things. We'll also add some branding as well once it's all finished generating, if that sounds all right to you.
You know, the branding side of this is really, really important to me. We have a whole style guide, font selections, color schemes, professionally designed. And what is critical to our success and our growing is for people to recognize us no matter where they go. And we have our own video library, we have our own course handouts, and having this look seamlessly integrated to the learner as if it is actually on our website is a very important piece. Because remember, when they complete this instructional design certification, I want them to come back to me. I want them to see me as their expert. I want them to come back repeatedly. So that brand recognition is really important to me. You can ask all my staff. I require all of our emails to be branded. You've got to use this font. You've got to use these colors. It's kind of non-negotiable for me. So I really like the custom branding.
100%. So I'm going to go ahead and add 30 minutes as an expectation for this course to take. And what we'll do is we'll just jump in. As I mentioned, I have gone ahead and grabbed some of your images from your website, Jeff. Hopefully that's okay, just for the purpose of this demo today. So I'm going to add in some background content there. We also need to add in your colors and your fonts. As you mentioned, it's super important. So I've also gone ahead and got those here. So I'm just going to add your blue in very quickly. And what this is going to do is in real time update everything for us based on the colors that we define. So let me just quickly go ahead and add in the content. And I'll just add that one there. And then I'll grab our orange color as well. And that's going to be our buttons. And we'll also do buttons here as well. Lastly, we also need to add the logo. Once again, I've got that on hand. Let me just quickly grab it. And that logo is going to upload. And you'll see a kind of preview here of where it's going to sit. And that's for the participant. They'll be always seeing that logo when they're interacting with your content. I'm going to go ahead and save the changes. And if I back out of here, and just really quickly, here's our image library where we have all of our content that we've uploaded. We can reuse in other modules too. And as you can see now, all the colors now have updated for us based on Jeff's color palette. If you don't mind, Jeff, actually, 1 second, I'll just very quickly update the colors of the headings to darker color. And then what we can do is then go through this, Jeff, together one by one, if you don't mind, and we can have a look at what we'd like to keep today, what we perhaps can remove, and then we can also maybe jump into some of that quiz elements as well. So starting with the first slide, what is a training program? We've got a nice accordion kind of interactive element here. Do we want to keep this or remove it?
You know, Ben, I think this is simple enough that it doesn't warrant the time to maximize in our e-learning. What is a training program? I think we can get rid of that one. There's other things I would rather focus on.
Perfect. So I'll go ahead and delete that one. And then we can jump into some really interactive flashcards here, which have an answer on the back. So as each learner is engaging with them, they can flip it over and get some information there. Is this something that we wanted to keep regarding onboarding versus professional development? What's the difference?
Absolutely. These can be confused quite a bit. Onboarding needs to be very, very structured, while professional development, we can allow for more of that participation, or as Robert said, that social learning. By the way, Robert, I'd be super honored if you started to use the word participation. You need not ever mention my name again. We're just very passionate about that. But so there is a big difference here between onboarding and professional development. One has a lot more participation ability. The other one has a lot less participation ability. Understanding that from the design aspect is important. Leave the slide.
Epic. Sounds good. And then I noticed that the text on some of these is quite long, just for a flashcard. What we can actually do with the Arlo e-learning capability is come up here with our text editor, and you can do all your classic, reorder font, make things bold, add links. But we can also use AI to refine this. So if I click the make shorter, that's going to cut this down into more of a readable text format, and you can keep doing that over and over. You can change the tone as well. So for it, just one quick example, I could change the tone, and I know we wanted to use not motivational, but as an example, you could update that straight away, which is pretty awesome. But I'll change that back to shorter. So moving on, Jeff, we've got one slide here around why bother with training programs. Is that one we want to keep?
Absolutely. I can't tell you how often I reach out to companies and they say, we've got SOPs. That's what we train from. And SOP is not a training program. Most folks here today probably recognize that, but folks out there in the world don't. They think, well, my SOP is. It's like, well, some parts of your SOP are really easy to grasp. Other parts of the SOP are more difficult for your employees to grasp. So training programs identifies those differences and can help create consistency in achieving your SOPs. So absolutely, I want this one left.
Perfect. And it is relatively, I've just reduced some of the text as well, but we could, if we wanted to adjust the layout, we could, move the images around if we wanted. We could put it as a background. We could remove the image. There's many different other screen types as well that are available. Just moving on, Jeff, we've got a few more here that's got a bit more of a text element. I'm just going to go ahead and quickly reduce that one there. And then we can have a look at some of these other aspects here. How about the step-by-step process to create a training program? This is kind of like a step guide, which we can add some images in as well. Is that something that looks good to you?
We absolutely need this. Again, this is what the training program is about, and it's also going to be the most difficult process to teach to folks that have zero experience. So we do want the step-by-step process. In fact, this is something that will in some form or fashion reoccur through every single e-learning module.
Awesome. And I actually have a picture of you here, Jeff. I can add that one in. Excellent. Cool. So Let's quickly move on to the quiz options now as well. So what we did when we generated our course outline is that we actually kept a quiz in at the start, and that generated a bunch of different quizzes based on the content that we provided for our participants to engage with. So we can perhaps test their recall, perhaps set up new, perhaps on the day, see if instructors can ascertain the learning and how much retention they've taken from the course. Did we want to go through maybe now, Jeff, and just have a quick look at these and maybe pick 2, maybe 3 of these to use throughout the course?
Yeah, and Ben, I think that's really important. In fact, I saw Robert mention something about this in the chat window too, about quizzes. If I'm doing a Swiftwater Rescue certification, ELCA, then quizzes become much more important to me because I have liability in making sure that people can prove certain skills. But really, quizzes and testings, from my perspective, are another teaching tool about recall or memory. So we do this, Ben, can we move these quiz questions around and put them in different places?
Yes, we can. We can move things around. We can adjust. We can delete. What we have here is an array of different types of formats. So as an example, we've got a true or false. We've got a match corresponding, so the participant needs to choose the right answer. We've got ones where you have to choose a drop down. You can add, obviously, and edit these as well. I noticed the first one, there's a lot of text here, so I might just make the executive decision and remove this first one. And then we can go through and have a look at what we want to keep and adjust. So first and foremost, we've got a multiple response question. Which of the following are benefits of creating effective training programs? And then we've got our answers here that are ticked in green. Is that something we want to keep?
Absolutely, and we could move that up under the second slide or so. I think that would be a critical move.
Awesome. What I'll do is I'll duplicate it, and then what I'll do is then drag this all the way up, and then we can put it under the second slide as discussed, and then I'll go through at the end and then delete anything that we don't want to keep from that one as well. So if we just look forward from the next one here. So that's so we've also got a true or false. Is that something that we want to keep? It's quite simple, I guess, in its design, but also perhaps it's always good to check that if anyone's getting things false. Is that one we want to keep as well, Jeff, or should we reduce that one as well?
For our purposes, true or false, 50-50. For this purpose, in this training program, this is not a good choice for us because we want more than just 50-50. We want real recall coming in, right? So we don't really want the true false.
100%. And these kind of questions, I guess, are applicable depending on which type of course you're running and what the module's purpose is. Totally agree with that. We've got another multiple choice option here, and we could obviously adjust these at any time as well to all the other options. This one is around what is the primary role of a course summary with one answer here, even though it's multiple choice, which could catch some learners out. Participants, apologies. Do we want to keep this one as well, or should we move on?
I love this one. I see people struggling with the course summary all the time. Course summary and course objectives, I think we can all agree, are 2 of the biggest obstacles in training design with folks. So definitely, I want to keep the course summary in there.
Perfect. And whereabouts should we move this one to throughout the module, Jeff?
I'm guessing we'll go like to 2. I'm thinking, Ben, when we start actually creating these, it's going to be a couple of slides of reading, cards, and then a quiz. That way, they're getting some information and then required to interact. And Elka, you and I are completely on the same page with how we think about training design. So I do want some reading, some informational content there, and then required interactivity. So a couple of slides. So 2 more slides down, Ben, after the last quiz, and then we can throw in another quiz question. And that's probably how we'll design every single one of these.
Perfect. So what I'll do is I'll just quickly delete a couple of these just so we can get into the preview mode as well, which I'm excited to show everyone. And then I'm just going to adjust this one as well. And then I know, Jeff, you mentioned video before too. Is that right if I go ahead and add one of your videos in here to kind of round out the module?
Who among us doesn't go onto YouTube or something else and watch some sort of educational content at some point in time? We're huge into video content here. Video works wonderfully online. In fact, that's one of our critical new pieces with our CE, is they're all interview based and in-field footage. So I absolutely want interview in here, or excuse me, video content in here. It's easy, it's fun, it's what we're used to, and I like it.
Perfect. Yeah, I'm a handyman at home, but I'm only a handyman because YouTube exists. I'll go ahead and add your video in here, Jeff. And I see the title is Learning Objectives. So I'll just show how easy it is to edit the text. And then we want to center that text as well. And as again, I could adjust it really quickly with AI too. You can also, one other aspect with video that I really think is super helpful, especially when you're trying to set a specific time for an e-learning module, is you can enforce completion on your videos. There's a lot of other tools that you can use within the system, which we won't cover today in this webinar, that essentially enable your participants to make sure that they access the content at the right time in the right place, but also that they're engaging with your content as well. So I'll go ahead and turn that option on. And there was one other element.
We would absolutely do that. Like, I want to enforce completion. Absolutely.
100%. And there's one other element I know we discussed in the past, Jeff, around the hotspot. Is that something you wanted to add in today as well?
Gosh, I really like the hotspot. And folks, what I'm thinking about with this is that's how we put our sample instructor outline on there in the very first session, so they can start to see what the end product is going to look like and what the key parts are. Yes, Ben, let's put the hotspot in there.
Perfect. And if I'm not mistaken, the image you'd like to do today is we replace the hotspot image. Is the instructor outline example, is that correct?
That's it, yes.
Perfect. And how this hotspot works, folks, that are in the call today, is that we can drag these interactive modules around, and then we can essentially add a hotspot where we could add, for example, a title here, and then you could add a description around why this particular thing is important for your participant. And then when they preview that and they view that and they're clicking on it, it'll give them a really quick overview of that image or whatever you're trying to showcase.
Lots of ways you can use that, isn't there?
100%, yeah, heaps of different use cases. And we've got lots of other different options in terms of the types of, I guess, screens that you can provide as well. But just so I know sorry, let me just jump back into my module. I don't have too much longer left, so I'll just quickly cover the preview options just to show you.
And Ben, before we jump into the preview, because I know there's actually
Sure.
a few folks have asked, what does it look like for the participant? But just I want to reiterate that, having existing outlines and course content, that's your IP. That's a huge starting point. You're not going into this kind of making up or asking AI to create it. This is your IP. And this does a very good job of kind of giving you a really strong starting point, but you do need to go through slide by slide, kind of really add your expertise and your kind of design knowledge to these slides. Is kind of, we've done a bit of a rapid fire version of that, but it's a really important piece. You guys are the experts. AI is not as clever as you. So kind of going through each of these modules, it's super easy to edit, super easy to update. Very customizable. So, there's lots of questions around, can they do this? Can they do that? You can do all that stuff. It's really easy, but I think the key is that your IP is used to really fine tune these slides and make them work best for you. But it's a huge starting point to drop outline and to have all the stuff there ready to edit and fine tune.
Scott, I think that's a
100%.
great question. Another session on the reporting side. If things go well, Arlo has invited us back after we've launched this program and been running it a few times to talk about how it played out for us. So, we're hoping to do that sometime in the next quarter, the first quarter of next year. But I'm really looking forward to the reporting side of things as well, Scott.
There's a whole side that we haven't shown, which is kind of how easy it is to schedule as a multi-session, and also what you see from a training manager around kind of engagement and completions and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, we want to go on the journey with Jeff, and we'll do a part 2, which kind of dives into that side of things.
Awesome. I'll just quickly show the preview, as I know folks are keen to see that. So this is exactly what your participants will be seeing when they access the content. So whether they're on a desktop, they're on a tablet, or they're on a mobile device, it's all going to snap and readjust to that screen size. And regardless of what device they're using, it's all going to be super responsive. So I'm just going to click through, and you can see a few of the options here. And I find that when using this tool, looking at the learner experience and then making sure that you go through and see what they're going to see, because that really quickly helps you identify any gaps or any areas that you can improve. If I was looking at this and I saw this amount of text, I know I could come back and then adjust that text to make it maybe a little bit more digestible for the participant. So just going through a few of the screens here, and you can see it's super interactive and obviously snaps to any screen size. And if I go next, here we've got our quiz. I'm not
This is
an
the moment of
expert.
truth. This is the moment of truth, Ben. Jeff, what do you got?
Yeah, and improves employee skills, right?
Hey, there we go. Whoa,
Under pressure.
on the spot. But I think that's everything from me today, Andre, unless you were keen for me to show any other aspects. I think I can hand back to you.
Yeah, I know we've got a couple of questions, but let's kind of get back into the slides and we'll kind of run through any final questions. So let's.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Jeff, for working on that with me. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, Ben, I wish you could come in my office and help us create all of these because, one of the things I really do like is the ability to do these on a mobile app on your phone or tablet. We are dealing with the construction industry. Some folks are in the office all the time, but we may have field managers in the field, and maybe they're waiting in their truck to meet an inspector or a client, and they can knock out this 30-minute segment in their truck on the job site. So we think the way it can be delivered is very valuable for us. And I can't emphasize this enough, you guys. We're building this right now. I'm very proud of this instructional design certification. It's going to be a really good one. We win awards doing this, and I'm just really excited to throw it out there and to share what we're doing with you guys. I'm very passionate about this.
Thanks, Jeff. And so we've got 8 minutes to go, so we'll kind of run over the key takeaways, but please keep your questions coming in. I know Mel's done a great job of answering as many as possible, so there's a couple here that we'll cover. But just quickly, let's look at the key takeaways, Jeff. It's been a bit of a journey for you. What are some things that you'd kind of, I guess, reinforce to help folks kind of adopt these new tools and opportunities, with as much success as possible?
Well, guys, I have been doing this for a very long time. I've been very successful in it. Our courses and programs do win awards. But I'm going to be honest, I'm very hesitant with doing the blended learning. This is our first full launch. I've done asynchronous, like simply self-study before. But this is the first time we're really diving into a full-blown blended learning environment. So creating this is a leap of faith, but I'm really excited about it. And I'm really excited about how it can reduce the cognitive overload in the instructor-led components and increase that social learning, as Robert said, or participation in the actual classroom, if you will, whether it's virtual in a webinar or whether it's face-to-face. So I'm really excited about how this is going to play out.
And Ben, you've worked with lots of different kind of customers and you've been doing a bunch of training. We launched this early in the year, so it's been a big initiative for us. What have you what are some of the key learnings you've taken on board working with various training providers?
Yeah, for sure. Great question. I think there's kind of two avenues to it. One is just seeing folks who weren't running blended courses or e-learning and creating a whole new revenue stream. So essentially building out a whole new course module and enabling to put on their website and gain new registrations has been awesome to see, and kind of the registrations that have been coming through from that as well for their businesses. And then on the flip side, creating, I guess, more engaging content, which, as we've discussed today many times, frees them up on the day to spend more time in a face-to-face environment and use e-learning as more of that setup, recall, and introduce new concepts. So yeah, a whole bunch of different applications for it. So it's been awesome to see.
What's been really interesting from my perspective is that a lot of our customers do offer blended, but it's quite simple. It's just providing some pre-reading or kind of some additional content, which is important. But to do so, they have to use another tool. They have to use another LMS. The end user has to kind of log into two different platforms. They get a random email that that they've got access to some kind of content. So it's just not very seamless. Also, the manager or the administrator or the person managing the training has also got to create e-learning content in different tools. They've got to look at the different version controls, all this kind of stuff. So from both sides, it really just simplifies the user experience and also the training experience. But more importantly, it allows people to kind of get a bit more creative around how they design a course, which is kind of this last point around tailoring the experience. Right content, right time, easy to access. I think it does open up some really exciting possibilities, which has been awesome to share with you, Jeff. We do have a question, Ben. You might be good. You might be good at this one. How can we encourage and ensure participants access pre-course content? So we looked at that learning design earlier. You've sent them a module ahead of the live session. How do you ensure that people have access to it, and how do you encourage them to complete it before the course? I'm sure that's a
Yeah,
challenge sometimes.
great question, and I've seen that before with customers as well. I think that'll be a massive piece to the part two of this webinar, where essentially we're going to look at the customer portal, we're going to look at scheduling, and we're going to look at delivery and presenting it in the right time and the right way. There's a lot of tools that will, in Arlo specifically, that will enable you to essentially notify your participants when that content is available, let them know when the next content is going to be available, and then also ensure that it's required for that part of the course to be completed. We're also working on some new features that will enable certifications to be sent based on the completion of the e-learning. And that really ties into, if they want to get the certification, like in this instance with Jeff, they're going to need to complete all of those modules to move forward and progress throughout that course.
And what we're actually going to do on a marketing standpoint, if I can interject there, to help inform, it is different. Like CE is one thing. It's government, mandated, and the attendance is government mandated. If they want to keep their license, they have to do it. But something like the certification class, so if they get the certification, they'll earn a discount, if you will, or a membership package to get our consulting. If they don't earn the certification, they don't get that membership for the reduced consulting. So we are planning in with our overall business structure motivation to make sure that they are taking those. And again, that motivation base depends on, is it government required? Is it a certification? What and why? So we're exploring that motivation as well.
And just to add even more detail, when someone registers for your course, that first session, if you create a multi-session in Arlo, that can be that e-learning module, and you can just decide when they have access. So it might be on registration, they get instant access, and then they'll get an automated email saying you've got access to the content. Here's a link, and then you could send a reminder as well. And then the manager or the person coordinating the course can jump into the portal and see who's engaged and completed the e-learning module, and you can even send them a reminder, send them a little nudge before the course. So you've got that level of visibility and control around when that's available, and automating the comms around that as well. There is another, where's this? One more question. Is there any designs to add AI generated voiceover for the text in the e-learning? So I think maybe this is accessibility. Can different users of different accessibility kind of have options, I guess, to have a voiceover read the content? Is that in the works, Ben?
There is alt text available in some instances, so you can provide alt text, which if you're using a screen reader, you'll be able to read those images or read that content. Currently, we don't have any voice capabilities coming at this stage, though.
There must be some tools though, that can kind of transfer text to audio, but yeah, not
Definitely.
kind of on, not that we're aware of.
Though. Yeah.
Dennis,
and we're doing, Andre, we're doing that with some of our video editing software. We have in-house videographers and editing team, and so we're adding the voice, the AI voice audio through other platforms that we're creating our video content in.
And one more
that's
question.
A whole other conversation, right? That's like.
One more question is there a way for participants to get a copy of the quiz results, Ben?
So you can actually, in Arlo, once the quiz has been taken, you can see all the results as an administrator, and then you can export those results out, and then you could then set up some scheduled reporting to send those results or those things to the relevant people. You could also just send them manually yourself as well, and then the participant themselves in the customer portal, which will show in part 2. They can then see any historical courses they've taken and see any e-learning they've taken as well, as long as you keep it available. So they can jump back and see their progress and see where they've got up to if they haven't completed that course.
And this is a really exciting space for Arlo, because we start to understand where learners are at, and then look at ways to kind of customize their experience or tailor, the in-session courses depending on their strengths and weaknesses. So I think there's a lot of opportunities here to work together with our customers to kind of tailor that experience. All right,
100%.
folks. Thanks so much for all the questions. I do just want to give a shout out and say, look, if you're wanting to talk more about this feature, please book a time with us. We'll have a follow-up email and you'll get a link. But one of our CSMs, our customer services team, are more than happy to jump in, bring a PDF like Jeff had, and we'll turn that into e-learning content in front of your very eyes and start kind of getting you set up within Arlo. There's a 14-day free trial inside the platform, so you can just go find that and click it. If you've already used your trial, just reach out. We'll restart that for you. But we really want to kind of take you on this journey, and we're happy to help and spend time with you creating new modules, just like Ben has today. But thanks so much, gentlemen. Jeff, always a pleasure, mate. So thanks so much for allowing us to kind of join you on this journey. And it's kind of, we're in the middle stages now, so we're looking forward to getting this to market and kind of and sharing in your success. And Ben, you're an absolute whiz, mate. So it was awesome to see you in action and to have you on the webinar today as well.
Loved it. Thanks so much, Andre.
And thanks
Yeah,
for everyone
thanks,
for joining
everyone.
us. Yep, really appreciate it, and we'll see you next time.